The new Boost Mobile network is offering unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month for life.
That sounds like a threat.
Then how do you think we should say it?
Unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month for the rest of your life?
I don't know.
Until your ultimate demise.
What if we just say forever?
Okay.
$25 a month, forever.
Get unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month with Boost Mobile forever.
After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan.
Hi, I'm Raj Punjabi from HuffPost.
And I'm Noah Michelson, also from HuffPost.
And we're the hosts of Am I Doing It Wrong?, a new podcast that explores the all-too-human anxieties we have about trying to get our lives right.
Each week on the podcast, Raj and I pick a new topic that we want to understand better and bring a guest expert on to talk us through how to get it right.
And we're talking like legit, credible experts. Doctors, PhDs, all-around superheroes.
From HuffPost and Acast Studios, check out Am I Doing It Wrong? Wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi guys, welcome to this week's episode of Heavy Metal Tones with me, your podcast host, Tony Evans, taking you through the world of wonderful heavy metal, heavy rock, punk, and all that stuff that we love to listen to. This one comes from a request from one of a listener on YouTube. There's my mic playing up. And it's actually something I've covered back in episode 54, but I did it very, very fleetingly as a sort of a double header on that episode. This was Witchfynde by the band Witchfynde from 1980, one of the stalwarts and early I can't remember the word. Pioneers, that's the word. See, it's too early over here. The early pioneers of the new wave of British heavy metal, which is NWOBHM, as we like to call it, or as it was called by the press back then. Not something that the bands of that particular era like. I don't think Maiden, who were the most famous band from that era, from that genre, like. But it doesn't matter. It's a good way of sort of encompassing certain sounds. Now, just to sort of get out those listeners who haven't listened to this show before, who don't know what NWOBHM is known for. That's what the anachronism is. Is it anachronism? I can't think of it. It's too early in the morning. Yes. Anyway, either way. Not anachronism. That's something completely different, isn't it? NWOBHM, new wave of British heavy metal. I know what I'm talking about. Not everyone else does. They will understand me. Anyway, so what do we get? It is a mixture of heavy rock, pub rock. It has a soupçon of punk in it, even though they will tell you it doesn't, but it clearly does. And it has sort of a unique British sound that pervades itself into all modern heavy metal now. Without new wave of British heavy metal, the genres that we have probably wouldn't exist, and the genres that we listen to now wouldn't be the same. I'm not saying that in an alternate universe that without NWOBHM you wouldn't have these bands, but it's like anything. You need a spark. You need something to start and the fuse going, right? So many bands, so many now that you wouldn't even know, unfortunately. Bands I've talked about on this show here, like the Tigers of Pang Tang, one of my favourites. Def Leppard started as a new wave of British heavy metal. Iron Maiden, of course. Diamond Head, I was covered heavily by Metallica. Some Metallica fans will know Diamond Head. Venom. There's so many. We're not here to talk about that. We're just talking about this particular band, Witchfynde, which is spelled Witchfynde. Produced in 1980. It's a very bass-driven album. We'll get to that when we talk about the music itself. But the band itself formed in Derbyshire in 1974 by the bass player Richard Bauer. and vocalist Neil Harvey. Okay, Richard Bauer decided had found a guitarist called Montello, and he is, like, we'll talk about him very, very soon, but he is unbelievable. And Trevor Taylor. And the band was called Aitofelo, or I think it's Aitofel. Aitofel, again, very hard to pronounce that. The people like Montello, very, very into their Wicca and their occult. So Wicca is the official name and proper name of witchcraft. Witchcraft is a more modern term for Wicca, but Wicca is not about cauldrons and pointy hats and black cats. Wicca is about nature and the green man and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, again, I don't use the word pagan, but the word pagan is in there. They once then Richard left. Montello reformed the band in 1975 and called themselves Witchfynde. They've got a bass player called Ardro Corden and drummer it's Gra, which is an interesting first name, Scoresby, and the vocals were Steve Bridges. And they did the Jews, as you can always imagine, trotting up and down the country, playing their music. It is a unique sound for the new wave of British heavy metal. It has all the tropes, which we'll talk about in the second part of the show, as we usually do. But it's not... See, everyone thinks that if you've got a picture on the cover of their album, they've got on the front of the cover of the album, the first album, Witchfynde, is a nice drawing, a sort of childlike drawing of the goat of Mendes, okay, which isn't the devil, it's the goat of Mendes. And there's an inverted pentagram and sort of witchy, sort of occult writing. It's very, very naive in its construction and its production, but it sort of doesn't say like a lot of bands at the time. The way to get above the noise that was out there was to either have a really good gimmick, even if you were the most musically proficient band in the genre, and you'll hear that when you listen to this album. We'll talk about this in the second half. This is an amazing album, technically, but it's an album you probably have never heard of or listened to all the way through. But they, like Venom, they wanted something to grab you, like Black Sabbath, yeah? Something to shock, to make the teenagers buy the record. And what do? You put on something that's satanic on the front cover. As satanic as you can make it. Okay, it was painted by Lauren Hoyland. That's how I found out. And that was the girlfriend of Gary, who was the roadie for the band. Right, so it's all in connections. I think I've mentioned this in episode 54 before. Interestingly, I found while digging around that the second album, Stage Fright, which is, hopefully I might do that on this show one day. It's a brilliant album. But it says that there's a sort of rumor that the cover was made by Mark Wilkinson, i.e. Judas Priest, Marillion, Fish, Iron Maiden, him of the brilliant airbrush. But there's no other rumor. I just saw a rumor of it. I don't know if it's true or not. And I looked deep down, I couldn't find it. But that's a different album anyway. It was recorded in Fairview Studios in Yorkshire. The same place that Def Leppard recorded their first EP. And strangely enough, the tour in 1980 was Witchfynde were supporting Def Leppard. And a lot of reviews say that Witchfynde blew Def Leppard off the stage. In fact, I read a review by someone that was there. It was in Cheltenham, where my brother was living at the time, I remember, said that they took the stage and completely dismantled Def Leppard. They were too good for them, which is something, wonderful now if you think about it. Def Leppard are a household name, Witchfynde are not. So it was recorded in Fairview Studios in Yorkshire, and it's an interesting studio because it was owned by Keith Hurd, who used to only charge £2 an hour for the recording, because he had very little. It was inside his mansion house, and he had very little production like equipment. And then that was in the 60s, and about 1973, when just before they were going to, just before the big boom of the new wave of British heavy metal, and in that sort of time of prog, he upgraded his studio into a barn, put a lot more equipment in it, and bands like Def Leppard, Mick Ronson, Uriah Heep, Tokyo Blade, another brilliant new wave of British heavy metal band, the Toy Dolls, one of my favourite punk bands. If you've ever heard Nelly the Elephant by the Toy Dolls, if you haven't, make a note and go listen to it. It's one of my wife's favourite songs. And of course, if you like pop music, the House Martins, of course, recorded there, which was something pretty fabulous. It was released on the 5th of February, 1980. So, it's just gone. It's anniversary, which is, is that 45th? I think it's its 45th anniversary. It's crazy. 40th anniversary, so it's great. Yeah, I'm terrible with maths. If someone could work that out for me, that would be spiffing. Let me pause and work that out. Yeah, 45 years. I thought so. I am absolutely ridiculous. By maths, that's why I wasn't really good at maths and didn't become a scientist of some kind. Thank goodness I hear you cry. So their album output, not a huge back catalogue for you to dive into. Give 'Em Hell, 1980. Then you had Stage Fright, the same year. And a few years later you had Cloak and Dagger, which is a good album. Lords of Sin. And then you had the Witching Hour, which came out in 2001, so it was a bit of a gap. And then in 2008, you got Play It to Death. I cannot say that I know those two albums. I haven't really delved into them. But Give 'Em Hell, Stage Fright, and Cloak and Dagger. Lords of Sin, bordering, but I would say the first two are marvellous. Some people say that Stage Fright is one of the best examples of a new wave of British heavy metal album out there, alongside Iron Maiden's, eponymous first album. I have did mention in my blurb on my TikToks that I have a history with this album, and I do have a history with this album because I picked it up for pennies at the Notting Hill Tape and Record Exchange, which is still there in London, near Portobello Road Markets, with my brother. He'd gone in, he collected prog and soundtracks and stuff like that, and I was looking through the punk and the metal section. I was, probably about 14, 15 maybe, 15, and there, lo and behold, this album cover, I'd never heard of the band, and it was like 50p. And I went over to my brother and I said, could you lend me 50p? I want to buy this album. And he said, yeah, I'll get it for you. And took it home, and it was something I had not expected. I had listened to Iron Maiden's back catalogue. I'd listened to Diamond Head. I knew very well a lot of the NWOBHM stuff up to a point that I could hear it. But this was something different and not as dark as I expected it because of the cover. Again, I think the album may have fallen apart resales wise because the music doesn't reflect what's in the sleeve. You know what I mean? Like the sleeve doesn't reflect the music, I should say. Which is not a bad thing. There are some dark themes in this album, but when you've put on Venom's Welcome to Hell, which at that time was skull crushing, and then you go and put on Witchfynde's Witchfynde, very much like last week's episode, which we did about Coven. It's very much in the same respect as Coven, and it has that same kind of hammer horror, a Marcus movie sort of horror theme feel. The kind of thing you'd imagine someone like Vincent Price to be listening to, or Christopher Lee having on in his changing room as he's getting made up as Frankenstein or the Mummy or Dracula or whoever. it's a cracking album. I come back to it now. This album, the one we're listening to, I'd like to say, is not the original release. It's very, very difficult to get the original release because I had mine stolen from me. I took it to a party, and in those days, you used to take 3 or 4 records with you, right? If you were brave, you might take 4 or 5. If you had money, I looked like took 2. I think I took Witchfynde and Iron Maiden's Iron Maiden, and I left them there. Went home, forgot about them, and when I went to go and get them, they weren't there anymore. Someone at that party, and there was a lot of kids there, a lot of teenagers, has walked off with it. Now, I'm not going to. I don't know who it was. It was upsetting at the time because even then, at that time, it was quite hard to get because it hadn't been repressed. So it was only 4 years after its original release, or 4 or 5 years after its original release. So I was quite gutted because I hadn't put it onto tape. Most of the time, I put all my records onto tape so I could listen to it on my Walkman. And for those people under the age of 40, my personal stereo, which was a tape deck. Go back and listen to an episode I did about that. You'll find it. And so I had no way of re-listening to it, and I hadn't started re-listening to it until the advent of streaming. So this is this reissue that came out. It's got 3 extra tracks on it. So we'll be talking about 3 extra tracks, and thank goodness it's got 3 extra tracks on it, because one of them is one of the best tracks of the new wave of British heavy metal I can honestly put hand on heart and say. And this is and that's a big one because the album itself has an absolute banger of a track in it. So yeah, I'm really surprised it wasn't on the album. Although, as we've talked about before, it's very tricky then to get as much. If you put too many tracks on a record, the groove itself becomes narrower, and then the sound quality is less. So you had to sacrifice something, and I can see every song on this album for me is a banger. So it's really hard. It would have had to been. I would have liked to have seen them release the album with this EP, but then again, it was a genre that people weren't spending lots of money on, and it was a time when there was high unemployment and money was a bit tight, and people wouldn't buy an album because the cost would have to go up. Whereas you would probably pay £1.99 for the album back then at full price, you'd have to probably pay £2.60 or something, maybe £3, and people weren't going to do that. They just weren't. Although people could and they would, but there would be the majority of the listeners are raggy-ass teenagers in long-haired raggy-ass teenagers in denim jackets and holes in their jeans, scraping the pennies together from their paper rounds or their pocket money to get these albums. So they weren't gonna. They would want it as soon as they could get it. Anyway, that's the era we lived through, kids. Those that are listening to that are younger will not understand that, sadly, because now you can just hop onto your brother's streaming platform if you don't pay for it, or your mate's one, and bingo, it's there at your fingertips. But anyway, enough of that. We're going to move into the album track for track, because it is a real banger of an album. I really want you guys to understand just quite how good it is. I made a whole notebook with the notes, which is unusual for me. I usually sort of try and pinpoint notes. This was so much fun doing. Anyway, enough for now. Have a rest, enjoy some ads, or if you really want to, go to patreon.com/heavy metal tones. Pay $2 a month and get ad-free streams and videos. Okay, like I'm doing an interview tonight for the show. Will go up in a few weeks' time, and that will be on the Patreon page if you want to see the video version of it. All the interviews I do for the show will go up on the Patreon page, video unedited. Most of the time when I put them onto the podcast, the audio stream, I have to edit ever so slightly because there's usually talking before and after and chit chat and stuff like that. Anyway, enough of that. While the adverts are on, do find Patreon and you can go and do it, can't you? Or just like and subscribe. Give me a 5-star review. Every review you give me helps me be noticed by other people. That'd be great. Anyway, bye for now. See you on the other side.
To make switching to the new Boost Mobile risk-free, we're offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
So why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Because you have nothing to lose. Boost Mobile is offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
No, I asked why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Oh.
Wouldn't.
Because you love wasting money as a way to punish yourself because your mother never showed you enough love as a child?
Whoa, easy there.
Yeah.
Applies to online activations. Requires port in and auto pay. Customers activating in stores may be charged non-refundable activation fees.
Hi, I'm Raj Punjabi from HuffPost.
And I'm Noah Michelson, also from HuffPost.
And we're the hosts of Am I Doing It Wrong? A new podcast that explores the all too human anxieties we have about trying to get our lives right.
Each week on the podcast, Raj and I pick a new topic that we want to understand better and bring a guest expert on to talk us through how to get it right.
And we're talking like legit, credible experts, doctors, PhDs, all around superheroes.
From HuffPost and Acast Studios, check out Am I Doing It Wrong? Wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back, everyone, to side 2 of Heavy Monotones. Look at Witchfynde's immortal and brilliant first album, an eponymous album, Witchfynde. As we said in the first half, this is a unique sound. It's very bass-driven. After listening to it repeatedly now, for about a week and a bit, it is so more bass-driven than I remember. It has a combination of prog, of heavy metal, of hard rock, a little bit of punk in there, very bluesy. It is the band that is said to be one of the main contributors to the building of the black metal genre. I didn't say it in the first half because I don't know if I generally believe that, because sonically I don't hear it. Yes, the cover, yes, some of the themes, but not so much the music. Anyway, it has all these different bits in it, and the vocals. First up, I'm going to say it out loud because I don't want to keep bringing it up because the vocals don't really change in this album. But Steve Bridges' vocals are they almost sound like they're double tracked. They sound like they're very echoey, and they sound like they're behind the mix. This is to me, and they're quite ethereal. He has an amazing scream on him, as a lot of the NWOBHM bands seem to have. It was like you had to have, like, you know, your Bruce Dickinsons, your Rob Halfords. You know, you had these vocals that could really go above and beyond, which were not something that was obvious in most music at the time. The guitar on it is some of the best work. How Montello is not, didn't go any further. I mean, he probably did. I couldn't find any more about him. You might know more, dear listeners, but it's just a package. Now, yes, does it sound like it's a bit dated? Yes. Does it sound like it's a bit cheaply made? Yes. Of course it does. But that's what the first Iron Maiden album does, and I know that Steve doesn't like it, but I don't care. Like, it's a thing of its time. Not everything can be so beautifully produced. You know, something's wonderful about the DIY aspect of punk. What brings me, takes me there all the time, and it's what takes me to the new wave of British heavy metal. Is that DIY, shed recorded. We can do this. We've got £50 in our pocket. This studio will charge us £50. Let's get in and do it. Let's press a single. And that, that sort of free form, free to do what you want, untethered by studio nonsense and production nonsense, is exactly what makes this stuff wonderful. And that's why, yes, it has its faults. It's warts and all, right? Yeah, you might put it on and you might be so used to polished, you just come off listening to Amorphous, right? And from the last week, I said Coven last week, Coven was the week before. You might you come off Amorphous and go, wow, Amorphous is so well produced. I mean, it's so beautifully made. This might be a little bit jarring to you, but I think if you let yourself go and just enjoy the sheer fun and the majesty of someone just do it, a group of guys, friends, just making something for them, and honestly making it really well. I mean, you listen to the first Black Sabbath album, that one has its flaws, its warts and all, right? It just does. Of course, Stage Fright and Cloak and Dagger, they all start sounding much better because they've got more money behind them. I mean, the only album that I think, that, to memory, for me, of my own personal taste, that is flawless as a first album is Nevermind the Bollocks by the Sex Pistols. That's a different. That just all comes together in one wonderful moment of synergy. But right, so I said to you before, the band is Steve Bridges on vocals, brilliant screamy vocals, Montello on guitar, Andrew Corton on bass, Scrosby on drums, and Roy Neve was the engineer. So the first track on the album is Ready to Roll, and it opens with this sort of very bluesy, almost Thin Lizzy-esque, deep purpley, heavy rock sound from the 70s, you know, like even slightly sweet, like a sweet opening track. It's really built for the teens. It has a, like, getting those young kids into this music. It definitely doesn't feel like old people should be listening to this. And this is back in the 80s. I don't mean now, because we're all old, let's be honest. But back then, it felt like it was a mum and dad would hate it kind of feel. It's very youthful. It has quite a punky feel to it in some of the opening guitar refrains. It's fun and youthful, and the bass in this, when the bass comes in, is just driving. It really has a Zeppelin drive feel when the bass kicks in. It has also the sort of Diamond Head vocals sound into it. Lyrically, you know, as I said to you before, this album is not an album that lyrically it's going to scare anyone. It's not, you know, really. I mean, there's dark things mentioned in it, and some of them are, if you read the lyric, and I'll read them out to you, you don't, you sort of go, I'm not quite sure where they are coming from. But this one, Ready to Roll, is just about, for me, it's just about getting ready to go on stage, ready to have fun, ready to go on the road, ready to play some rock and roll. You know, it's really driving, it's fun, and it opens with a nice yell, like scream, quite a quick one. And it's like, don't pretend that you ain't feeling restless. In your mind, you're asking who's the best. What you've got, we only want to borrow. So let's go, because we'll be gone tomorrow. Be there tonight, be there tonight, be there tonight, ready to roll. So it's you know, it's just, you know, happy inside, can't you see we're reeling, feeling something coming and it's getting near. Must be the heavy stuff you've been dealing. Now, I originally thought when I first heard that, a drug reference, but it's not. I think that's just the heavy music. They're just really getting into the sound. And it has that, yeah, right, come on, like some really moving, driving song. Like it would be a great song to exercise to run to. It's just full of energy and youthfulness. The guitar solo is something really lovely. It again, I said Montello is such an underrated guitarist. You know, 2 minutes 15 in, the solo or just before then comes in, and it's. I was saying to a friend of mine, I was listening, talking about this album to a friend of mine, and it has a feel that he's using a Gibson, and he's not using a lot of really heavy effects. It doesn't sound like a lot of effects. Maybe the chorus, really. He may play around with a bit of distortion here and there, but like The Who, the bass, like John Entwistle's bass, he often said that he was The Who's rhythm guitarist. And you feel that with this, where it feels like, you know, the bass player is basically taking the heavy load. That's Andro. He's taking the heavy load, while Montello is sort of punctuating and picking out, pardon me, the special bits of the song that really sort of prick your ears up. It's not blisteringly fast. We're not going into sort of Eddie Van Halen kind of speed. It is very much the new wave sound. So Maiden guitar solos, the kind of guitar solos that you get on Diamond Head and Tigers of Pang Tang, early Def Leppard particularly, and you can see some of the influences there. But it's a brilliant, brilliant song. The vocals just feel the way that he brings out. These aren't wordy songs. There's lots of space between the choruses, and it's almost like he's quite. I mean, it feels like quite a sorrowful vocal. The guy's got a really unique sound. And again, you may not enjoy it. I know there are people out there who have said they don't like his voice. I think that's. I'm not going to say that's wrong, because everyone has their own opinions. You might come back to me and say, love the music, don't like the voice. I know that John often will say that to me. One of my best friends, and one of the long-term listeners of the show. In fact, the longest listener of the show. But I don't know if he will say it with this. I think it is a voice that can polarize, but I love it. I absolutely love it. Then we move into the Divine Victim. This one is right out of the NWOBHM playbook, the tick this bingo card of NWOBHM music. So it's a piece of history. It's a learning song, right? Not as much learning as you do with Iron Maiden, but it's something, most of the NWOBHM bands on their album would have a piece of literature based on, or a famous character from history. This is Joan of Arc, the French knight that was burned at the stake as a teenager for rising up against the British. That's a lot more complicated than that, of course, but you will understand that to get through this album, I can't give you... You can always go and look who Joan of Arc was, and most people know who Joan of Arc was, okay? It's quite a chunky, distorted guitar. It's catchy as all hell. It's driven. It's got a driven rhythm section. It's got great head-banging rhythms. A real party song. You see why I took this record to the party. It has rip-roaring fast. It's not rip-roaring fast, but it's really doomy. So this, for me, is like Witchfynde General. So a lot of people don't like that album. I was talking to Benji about it. He really doesn't like them. I love them. Like Witchfynde General, there's a sort of real sort of sludginess, Black Sabbathiness in this here. And it's got quite a sort of bluesy feel to it. Yeah, it's something that you do hear more in early metal than you do in the later ones. It's so much something that I really dig. I did an episode called Where's All the Blues Gone? You can go back and listen to that one as well. And I really love blues. And blues behind heavy rock could really give a melody and a swagger. There's something lost in some of the extreme... I love extreme metal, as you know, but sometimes you lose your blues melody and I lose the hook for me. It's really quite a distinctive track here. It's not... It's got, like I said, chuggy rhythms. You get caught up in it, and it has this sort of a fun, really bombastic end. I've written that in big letters. I don't know why, but I wrote has a bombastic end, and it's sort of real NWOBHM fodder. I wrote in there as well, real NWOBHM fodder. God, it's so chunky, it's so rhythmic, it's so fantastic. He writes an amazing riff. People talk about Tony Iommi's riff writing. Oh my God, this guy's riffs are right out of that textbook. The lyric is, it goes, "Angel of death spread its wings on the glass. Eyes of the seekers watch deadly and chilled. Others will be and forever. Joan of Arc, warrior queen, loved herself." Which, because I mean, she was considered, well, they tried to have a burn for heresy, didn't they? Witchcraft. That it was interesting story. Of course, she wasn't. She was just trying to help the French nation. She did have visions and a religious epiphany, and then she wiped herself down and carried on. No, that's terrible. But yeah, see, so she was considered a witch as well, even though she's a saint in most parts of France. Delay the scheme where there's wine, true in their cause, now their breath lay wide on the turf. Joan of Arc, warrior queen, loved herself, the divine victim of on your voices, choices, loved herself, witch. The silent, the banners, Joan of Arc, loved herself, warrior queen. It's a very simple lyric, but it's so chunky. It's so it's slower than the first song, right? You know, like a lot of these NWOBHM albums, they change in direction really quite dramatically. Maiden was the best at it and still the best at it. You know, the amount of time changes in one of these albums straight from the prog school of rock. You know, the school book of, the prog rock book of rock. I'm trying to say, you try and say that quickly if you haven't had a drink. Let me tell you. And it just ends right at the end with a nice sharp witch. It's so... Oh, I love this album so much, guys. I really, really do. I hope it comes across, because there are people out there that I've never heard it and are going to hate it, but I don't care. I really don't care, because I fucking love this album. Maybe it's Lost Youth. Maybe it's the fact I just love NWOBHM music, which I really, really do. And maybe it's just the innocence and the early birth of a medium, a genre which I adore. Okay, well, then we move on to Leaving Nadir. Nadir. For those that don't know what Nadir is, now I'm going to read you, okay, the scientific term for Nadir. It actually means the lowest point, okay. Quote, it says here, our hopes reached their nadir. It is a point in the celestial sphere that is directly opposite the zenith and directly underneath the observer in the lowest point. Don't ask me to repeat that or even understand it, but basically means the lowest point. So leaving nadir means rising up off your knees, in fact, getting out of the mire, getting better, moving upwards to the sunny upward lands of well-being. This is a really very proggy song. It opens with the clean guitar, a little bit of echo, nice swaying bass, and some beautiful splashy cymbal work from the drums here. It ebbs and flows, it's got a really beautiful ebb and flow to it. It has a real Yes and early Genesis feel to me. In fact, it actually sounds a little bit like something from like little sections of Supper's Ready, if I really think about it. It's one of the longish songs on the album, but at 1:38 it turns up the tempo. So 1 minute 38 into the song, it turns up the tempo and becomes a really addictive, bass heavy, drums heavy rock moment. It's got a lovely riff on it, one of the best riffs on the album for me, and it's the point. It's basically this song sounds like his lowest point in hell, and he's trying to get out. It's the journey, sin and temptation. I've written. It ends the same way as it opens musically, so it's a lovely opening and closing to it. But I'll give you the lyric for it. Okay, here we go. Before we do that, I do want to talk about the rhythm. I said this is a multi-faceted song. It's apparently one of the most popular live that they play. And they still play it because they're still around doing their stuff. And it's a real comforting song, and weird that it sort of encompasses you, wraps you in its music, and you sort of really feel elated by it. It's got a real, even though I'm sure the lyric is going to be quite dark, the music itself, the rhythm itself, the sound, the signature sound that Witchfynde have, is so uplifting and so pleasant to listen to for me. And this is for me. I mean, I keep saying this isn't universal, people. I'm not speaking for every silly human Homo sapien on the planet. I'm talking about it for myself here. The lyric is, "Let me take you there, it's part of a dream. It's what you want it to be. Of a time that now is clear to me, I'm playing in the mind of a man who sat in the company with the devil. He's trying to voice all from below, selfish spirits working for him, for his soul, to fall free and pass in hell. We're leaving, pass through the white noise. We're leaving, Nadia. Be true to fate of what it is done," he spoke. "I'll free you too." So we both flew as one, as straight as an arrow, into clouds of darkness, blood and red and stone. Silver crows screaming loud, nights of fire stand alone, against all winds that hold me. Flame-licked angel blue changed through to holy dew anon. Her scarlet body sanitized, blackened with desire. She's leading us on. We're leaving, pass through the white noise. We're leaving, Nadia. I mean, that's a complicated lyric. I read that as someone who is leaving hell. There's different journeys. He's going with someone. He's obviously there is sin, as in the woman in red and black. There's a devil. It's a metaphor, I think, for getting out of and being more pure. And the song itself is quite tragic in its music. It does feel, I said it wraps you, but it's sort of sorrowfulness, some doomness that makes you do feel a bit low, but at the same time uplifted because the music is so fucking good. It's so good. Then we move on to Getting Heavy. Now this is one of the shorter songs on the album, one of the weaker ones. I did say it's all killer, no filler. It's a killer track. It's not one that I particularly really enjoy. It's got a great screaming vocal on it. It's got quite a fuzzed bass. This is when the bass starts to get really fuzzy here. It's got a lot of reverberation used on it. I think it's a drug song. It could be. But it also could be about delayed gratification. It could be about, taking the blue pill, if you know what I mean, right? Very simple in its track, because you've just come off Leaving Nadia, a complicated piece of music. It's good to have a slightly more simple track, on it. That doesn't to say this is not a cracking riff. I think if you went to a Witchfynde concert and you saw the album played in full, you'd be so knackered at the end of it. You'd move so much. It's an album that makes you want to move. I was just listening back to that song this morning, and I was moving while I was doing stuff and swaying. It's really a good, fun piece of music. The lyric is like, taking chances only he won't time. I got the ashes sometime. I met pretty lady it was meant to be. I'm looking at her, but she's looking back at me. Things are getting heavy. Saw my doctor, slowed up my health. I want to keep going. Said, I'll take a look. He looked like a vampire with his opening. Things were getting heavy. I know it's so close, but I don't want to show it in my sleep. I can't see it's getting big. It's getting heavy. See, there's lots of drug-related connotations, sexual connotations. But then there's a weird lyric here where it says, but its neck wrapped itself around me. I feel much safer now. I'm never free, and things were getting heavy. So it could be that fever dream, that drug fever dream. He's got the doctor doesn't mean to be a doctor. The doctor could be like the acid queen from The Who's Tommy, right? Could be someone who gives you the pill. But it is, again, it's quite a quick track. It's 3 minutes 44. Doesn't hang around. Not the single off the album, interestingly enough. I think the lyric may have been too much for the single. The next track is the single. The classic metal scream. One of the most recognisable new wave of British heavy metal songs of them all, Give 'Em Hell. It is just simply brilliant. I picked up an original copy of the single, mint condition, beautiful, directly from the band, I believe. They sold me a copy of it. It must have had old stock. And it's not a reissue, because I couldn't find if it was reissued at all. It might be, but it's in really good conditions. Beautiful. On the Rondelet label, which is what the album is on. It's a real battle cry for the genre. People say that Iron Maiden's Iron Maiden, but Witchfynde's Give 'Em Hell is right up there with Grim Reaper, and it's just, yeah, it frustrates me that they are not as big as they could be. It's the perfect example of a single. It's driving, it's youthful, it's headbanging, it's got a great catchy chorus, great riffs. It's just simple, structured, and wonderful. Okay, just simple, structured, and wonderful. That's all I'm going to say about this song. It's got a great solo. You can see why it was a single. You walk away and you're singing it still once it's finished, and that is the sign of a good single, right? That is a sign of a really good song. If the first 30 seconds of that wonderful riff, that dun 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 sort of thing, going with the drums going in the background and bass driving, if that doesn't get you up and moving, then I think you're dead from the waist down, my friends, or the neck down even, because that is such a righteous piece of music. And I can't believe I used the word righteous, and I probably should be get a reprimand from the word police for using righteous, as I'm not 19 and from the Bronx. Anyway, it is fucking brilliant, and it's a simple lyric, right? It's the single, right? It's not trying to be complicated. He goes, if the powers that be tell you there never were three wise men, then you better believe it's true. They won't ask you to come again. In the cage the ringmaster cracks, he puts you through all your tricks. Then the lions are on their back, you're running out, and then you slip. Shout it out, give them hell. It's the way he does it. Ooh, shout it out and give them hell. It's just, oh, love it. Happy sat in the back seat, but the manager shows you the door. Then you're picked up for the walk in the street. It's too much, you can't take any more. I think it's just about teenage rebellion. Give them hell. Yeah, go out and give them a go. Like the first opening track, Ready to Roll. Just go out and give them hell, man. Give them, as my good friend up north would say, give them rice. Get stuck in Laos. He'd say, pull up the ladder, mother, all that kind of stuff. Fill your boots. That's the sort of thing that this song is about, and it really. It's a shame. It's a real shame that this was the only single of the album, because I think, as I said, probably Getting Heavy would have been a good single as well. But, it's expensive to produce, not much money, you do what you can, and it's just a moment in time. And it's just, I smile that it's here with us and that we have it. And now it's digitally available, and reissues are available now on CD and on vinyl, if you can get them. They were reissued in 2008, so they're still around. They may be a bit pricey, but they're still around. So where do you move from a single like that? Just one of those singles that sort of just makes you smile. Well, you go into the second, on this original release, the best track, in my opinion, possibly one of the best NWOBHM or New Wave of British Heavy Metal fans tracks of them all. Into the Ages of the Ages. It's quite a long song, it's about 8 minutes. And it's a hidden gem. It's one of those pieces of music that, if you like me, or a love of your prog and your heavy rock and all that kind of stuff, you're going to really, really dig this. I've written in big red pencil, this is a bit of heavy metal, doom metal, prog metal mindfuckery, because it really is. It's a mindfuck. And I don't usually swear, but I had to about this one. It has all the tropes, sing-along choruses, fantastic chromatic rhythm sections where you're taken on a scale journey. It's heavy, it's got a very dark bass. It's sort of, hold on to your hats. This stuff is real, guys. This is what I wrote on in big letters. This is so... Oh... superlative is a word I'm going to say. I can't think of the words to really describe it, guys. You have to listen to it. It starts off pretty light, pretty straightforward, bringing you into the song with a little bit of acoustic guitar. Suddenly, a few seconds in, bang, you're straight into, and I don't want to keep using these terms, but it's good for you to have an audible point to take and understand. It has a real Free sound. It sounds like Free. It sounds like Badfinger. It sounds like Thin Lizzy. Could even be a bit of Lynyrd Skynyrd. It's got all that sort of, even a bit of Journey, a little bit of, Boston in there. And it's sort of that almost American sound in ZZ Top-ish, early ZZ Top. And it just becomes this fantastic chugging rhythm. Like it's another song attached on, but seamlessly. Another time change, another signature NWOBHM prog inspired time change, just like everyone listens in Maiden, but no one says anything about it. I don't listen to prog. Yes, you do. You listen to Iron Maiden. Anyway, it's got this great pop, it's a rock song up until about 2 minutes 40, when it changes into that mind fuckery. It is intense. There is Hammond organ, there are tumbling drums, there are stark bass lines, heavy affected guitars. It's got chaos. It's feels like an ascent into madness. It's something that the prog bands, particularly bands like Van der Graaf Generator and ELP, did so well, and Floyd. They're not a prog band. I know that's going to annoy John, but for me, I've talked about this before. But anyway, Floyd, whatever genre they're set in your opinion, do make this amazing, crazy, tumbling madness, particularly in the Syd Barrett era. It actually feels a bit like something off of Syd Barrett's solo album, The Madcap Laughs. I was only talking about that with John the other day. And it's an intense, and the lyric, the chorus, it sort of slows down and does what this band does well. The chorus is like a real sing-along chorus. You can imagine giving yourself drawn into it and singing it along as you go. So it opens with, I get feeling that I feel is raw. I get no idea what I mean. I thought those chains you laid on me, I suppose one day it may change, change, change. It's a beautiful chorus. And that's where you've got the chromatic notes coming in the chorus with change. And it goes, all right, okay, yeah. And it goes, then it's a bit of a scream. I don't understand quite what this song is about. Into the ages of the ages. Who knows? They could have been off their faces when I wrote this, but I don't give a crap, because it is just a brilliant journey into madness. It really, really is. This one is the only track on the album where I think you can hear the black metal influence. It's just chaos. It's just delicious. It's something that Steven Wilson would do now, and Porcupine Tree and all these modern sort of prog metal bands. I would say this is probably one of the very first proto-prog metal tracks of them all. I have to speed up because I'm running out of time and I really want to get through all of this, but it's an amazing track. I completely forgot how much I love this, and until I re-listened to the album again, and got to this, and I must have flicked back and listened to this back to back probably 5-6 times. The chaos in the middle has got all sorts of stuff: reverse vocals, records playing backwards, satanic noises, chaos on every level. It's just beautiful chaos. Now, if this is the original album, we'll be coming to. I'm sorry, I'm going to say here, no, it's very, very experimental. It ends back with a driven rock and roll finish. Okay, but for me, it's the most daring song of the early 80s. It's just wonderful. It's has a real, that middle section has a real 60s drug infused early 70s madness that you just, I wouldn't expect. Like on Coven, where the last 13 minutes was a black mass. This is just, I have to take a second. It's just wonderful. Anyway, now, if this was the original album, we'd be ending with Pay Now, Love Letter. It's just, it's fun, guys. Love Later, not Love Letter. Sorry, my handwriting's terrible. It's a real 70s, again, because this is 80, right? 1980, so it's going to be mainly 70s. It's not inspired by the 80s. The 80s hasn't freaking arrived yet. So it's a real 70s sound, a real low-slung Gibson, tight pants, spandex, UFO, scorpions sort of sound, right? It's pay now, love later, as you know exactly what that means. It's, courtesans of the night. It's paid pleasure. Okay, it's the ultimate sin, or the oldest profession, as they say. It's catchy. It's got a great catchy chorus. It does smell like, it feels like sweet. I love the lyric in it. It feels like, again, free. It's bass driven. It's such a bass driven album. It's short, but it's a great way of ending the album. It's a great way to end this album. In a way, it's quite a party song. Interestingly, lyrically, I have an issue. I've always had an issue with the misogyny in a lot of NWOBHM and a lot of early heavy metal. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I don't particularly like overtly masculine and overtly what's the right word I'm trying to think of, sort of visualizations of making women be objectifying. That's the word. I don't like it very much. This sort of goes there but sort of doesn't. Okay, it just has a pay now, love later, sweet operator. That's the chorus, man. I would give you the lyric, but unfortunately, hang on, let's see if I can find it. 1 second. It's not on I couldn't find it on the Spotify lyric bit. Let's see, 1 second. I found it. Here we go. So it says, I met her in a smoky room, and there for the take. Hey there, beauty. Oh, can we make it? The strobe lights were moving up and down her thighs, and then she smiled and made love with her eyes. Pay now, love later. Pay now, sweet operator. Pay love now, pay later. She started getting friendly. Say no more. A bottle of brandy, and on the floor we met into her room. We were frisking in the bed. I just got naked, and she said, "Oh yeah, pay now, love later." So, yeah, it's a very sort of, it's masculine. It is what it is, but it's not as sort of dirty and as degrading as some of the early metal stuff that could be very boyish, very what sort of set back to some extent the equality in metal for a long time. You still had your bands like Girls' School, of course you did, but they were also sort of sitting in around that masculine thing. They weren't doing their own thing. Thank goodness now they can. So that's the end of the album, right? That was where it would normally end. But I really want to quickly talk to you about these 3 extra tracks. Well, one particularly in to be honest, but imagine the album is finished, you turn it off, finished, thank you, wonderful album. But here we get to 3 extra tracks. First one is The Divine Gallop. This is really simple. It's less than a minute long. It just sounds like if someone's put a needle on a scratchy record. You can hear the hiss and crackles of a record, and fuzzy sounds, and then it sounds like a bar brawl in a western, like in a put those gun down, sheriff, that kind of thing. And then you've got silent music going in the background, and then of course a little bit of talking and some fun. I don't know what that has to be on there for. I'm not quite sure, but everyone's allowed to have a bit of fun. This is their record, and they can put it out. Why not? Right. But then we move to, now I said when I'd first heard Into the Ages of the Ages as one of the best, proggiest out metal songs of its time, you have to then hear, now I'm going to butcher this, I'm sorry Greek listeners, tetelestai. It means a Greek word which means it's finished. It was used in the Gospel of John about the death of Jesus, the final words he said before he dies. It also can mean paid in full, or we battle now. It's again the sort of length of as in the Ages of Ages. It's singularly wonderful in the fact that its guitar riffs, like the other long track, very proggy, It's very unique in its approach. The solo, it's quite bluesy. It opens up quite bluesily, as they do with a lot of their music, as you're obviously coming to understand. It has this 3 or 4 note choral guitar piece underneath the chorus of vocals at the opening, and they continue that theme, that guitar theme. It sounds like a 4 or 5 note little tiny refrain in a key of E, I think it would be. It's just you think it would be annoying, like a buzzing sound of a fly in your ear or something, because it's the same kind of notes over and over and over to a point. But until it gets to that 3 minutes where the solo comes in, it's just wonderful. The lyric, again, getting the lyric for this was quite tricky to tell you. To find it was hard, but I did. I tracked it down. Here we go. Let me see. I lost it again. Here we go. God, it's tricky to find. Yeah, so now you see the order fall: empty inside, don't want to go, go on, celebration, begin, celebration. And that's where that it's a really ethereal vocal on it. Now, if all you want is dreamt, you can judge what you lose yourself if you're dreaming. Go on, celebration. Now you see the order fall: empty inside, don't want to go on, celebration. Thinking of rhythm, just a tease of mind, chanting, dancing, jesting. With your reason, free for all day and ready to play, stretched, lacking my sense of seasons. It is quite hippie, right? It's quite proggy. In that respect, and let's face it, all prog is a bit hippie. But I just absolutely love that refrain in the guitar. I love the way that Steve holds back in the passion for the lyric. It's so softly sung. It's really beautiful, and the bass in this is slightly overdriven when it jumps into the solo. When it gets into the solo after 3 minutes, it sort of changes, and you can hear they've sort of added more overdrive to the bass as it distorts slightly, and it's has a real sort of Acid Queen Tommy feel to it. It's just great. And again, the solo is one of the best solos on the album, the one that comes in at 3 minutes. And then it progresses and into the 4th minute, over distorted bass, and jumps right into a heavy blues riff. It's punctuated by dirty flourishes, a real Gibson, Deep Purple, Badfinger sound. It's got Hammond organ throbbing through it. It has space in it. And then it halts at 5 minutes and 45 and sends you back into this classical Witchfynde sound. Like, again, they've gone back to their original sound on it. And it's got every inch of it is delicious. It's packed with sonic madness. Has an ELP, brain salad surgery kind of feel. Dr. Feelgood, Gary Moore. It's got that kind of refrain. In fact, when I was listening to it, some of the guitar parts sound a bit like Stephen Rothery's from early work with Marillion before they got really big, before Misplaced Childhood. Some stuff on the Madcap Dances and early Grendel and The Tower, it was called. It sounds a bit like that. It's just I want that on the album. I want a physical copy with that on the album. I don't know where you'd put it though, but you know, because that and as I said, Into the Ages from the Ages of the Ages is wonderful. This, because I hadn't heard it before, because this is the streaming one of it, right? Well, I've heard the streaming one many years ago, but it was on YouTube. It didn't have this extra bit on it, and it's just I regret not listening to it for a couple of years, to be honest, and really sad I don't have the physical copy of this album. But this song, whether I've butchered the way you say it, the title, Tetelestai, again, Greek readers and Latin readers and people who don't understand the language, I do apologise, but it is chef's kiss. Beautiful heavy riffs, beautiful blues driven. It belongs on a classic prog album, and people will be going, wow, was that one of Genesis' greatest tracks? It's just great. Again, the only thing that will spoil it for some people will be Steve's vocal, because some people may not like his vocals, but I say, get a life. Go on. I dare you, just try it. Don't be completely het up with this sort of stuff. And the very last, sadly very last, is Wake Up Screaming. This is the most echoey vocal on the album. Again, not the greatest of long list of songs. It's driving. It's got quite a sort of nightmarish kind of riff. And big, splashy drums. Great piercing vocals. It feels like it's a brooding. It's got this brooding blues to it. So it's a real kind of rock anthem halfway through. It sort of feels like the guitars are really double tracked. It's pulsating. It has a clever lyric, and it's quite feverish in that respect. Good way to finish this special album. I also think this is probably some of the best drumming on the special album. It's not on the album, shamefully, but the cymbal work. You know me, I'm a sucker for really splashy drums, and this has a real open-shouldered Bonham kind of Keith Moon-esque drum feel to it, and it's just fun. The lyric is, "Evil eye, I can't see why, I'm burning. Timeless vault here inside, imprisoned within. Midnight phantoms, they tear apart the edge of my mind. They're clawing me, demon grasp from a future time. Wake up screaming every night, I'm screaming. And the way he sings that lyric, screaming, it's just, it's brilliant. Suspended here, rest of my life between heaven and hell. I'm in flames, go away. A fever dream, again. Wake up screaming, that nightmare moment where we've all had them in our lives. That not everyone has had night terrors. Not everyone has night dreams, nightmares, but most of us have. It can be that moment where you wake up screaming. You don't know which is reality and which is not. I used to have them a lot. I still get them occasionally, but when I was a teenager, I used to get them a lot, and I can see exactly where he's coming from. On this, it's not quite sleep paralysis. That's a whole different thing, but it's certainly nightmarish. And what a way to the end of the album. Go on, short song, 4 minutes, not taking you too long to get through it. Really isn't. It ends again with that kind of, if anyone knows the Venom album, At War with Satan, the end, that sort of end sound effect at the end of the title track, which takes up almost one side of the album, by the way, which is amazingly wonderful. I've talked about it. Please go back and listen to that. That kind of whooshing chorus, throbbing nightmare, like the blood in your head pumping. It feels like that. And it ends that way. And it's like, wow, did I just really listen to this album? And how was this not, considered one of the greatest albums of the movement? It shocks me. It really, really shocks me. But hey, there was a lot of noise around at that time, and with no money and probably poor representation, and on a small label like Rondelet, which wasn't going to be able to push big albums out as big as, say, EMI, like with Iron Maiden. It's a tough one. It's a really, really tough one. The second album, Stage Fright, which we'll talk about someday, is on a bigger label, and it did make more money, and it did give them a bit more exposure, but their sound changes on this album. I don't want to give that too much away, but its sound changes on this album, on the second album, Stage Fright. Still a brilliant album, but it does change. This, though, is DIY metal at its very, very best, and it's an album that's lived with me for nigh on 36 years, maybe longer. And so, yes, I haven't listened to it for a few years. It was really nice that the listener on YouTube, if you're listening to this, thanks, mate, for reminding me. I mean, as I said, I did an episode back in episode 54, but it was a quick one. It wasn't quite like this. And it was just nice to go and spend some time with a familiar old friend and realise just how much you loved them, really. And wish you hadn't got out of contact with them. Happens to all of us, right? Anyway, that's enough for this week. Do like and subscribe. Do go on to patreon.com/heavymetaltones. Sign up, and for $2 Australian a month, ad-free plus extra videos and all sorts of things. And being a patron, you can choose an album, a genre, a singer, a song, anything you like for me to look at. Hopefully something I can get an hour out of, not just a song, but, the more the better. Anyway, please do have a safe week. Keep rocking. And next week's episode is going to be a cracker. It's an interview I've did with a local Canberra band whose drummer is a friend of mine's partner, and is a friend of mine, I should say. They're a really great progressive metal band, and I don't want to give too much away, but please do come and listen to that, because it's going to be an absolute fabulous chat. Bye for now.
The new Boost Mobile network is offering unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month for life.
That sounds like a threat.
Then how do you think we should say it?
Unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month for the rest of your life?
I don't know.
Until your ultimate demise.
What if we just say forever?
Okay.
$25 a month, forever.
Get unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month with Boost Mobile forever.
After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan.
Hi, I'm Raj Punjabi from HuffPost.
And I'm Noah Michelson, also from HuffPost.
And we're the hosts of Am I Doing It Wrong?, a new podcast that explores the all-too-human anxieties we have about trying to get our lives right.
Each week on the podcast, Raj and I pick a new topic that we want to understand better and bring a guest expert on to talk us through how to get it right.
And we're talking like legit, credible experts. Doctors, PhDs, all-around superheroes.
From HuffPost and Acast Studios, check out Am I Doing It Wrong? Wherever you get your podcasts.
Working hard is worth it if you're seeing results. And when it comes to working out, the same thing is true. You want the maximum benefit in the time you have. And that's exactly what Tonal is built for. And with their latest iteration, Tonal 2, you can ensure your workout is more tailored and effective than ever. Tonal's at-home strength training system uses adaptive weight to learn from your movement and set the optimal weight for every move, adjusting in 1-pound increments up to 250 pounds, challenging even the most advanced users to push their limits. You can also experience a full body burn with the new Aero HIIT workouts, the perfect blend of heart-pumping cardio and strength. Plus, the new built-in Smart View leverages a high-resolution camera that lets you see yourself during your workout, analyzes your movement, and provides real-time coaching, just like a personal trainer. Right now, Tonal is offering our listeners $200 off your Tonal purchase with promo code 200TONAL. That's Tonal.com and use promo code 200TONAL for $200 off your purchase. That's Tonal.com. Promo code 200TONAL for $200 off.